Speaking of bucket lists, Man of La Mancha,
Oh God.
Don Quixote,
Oh yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Brad, and I'm hoping that you can pick up the story. Brad Wright and I were talking, and there was a scheduling conflict, and this is just the to show the goodness of that production and how they were flexible with the actors. Can you take it from there?
I will, except I'm going to correct you. It wasn't Man of La Mancha. It was
Oh,
Cyrano. It was
Cyrano.
Cyrano de Bergerac. Another bucket list one. And I was doing it. And before I took the job, I called and said, hey, I got this job coming up. I really want to do. I just, checking, see if you're clear. And am I clear for a couple of months, 8 weeks? And they said, oh yeah, you're absolutely clear. So this is a month before, and on the day I go, I'm literally driving to the first day of rehearsal, and I get a phone call saying, oh, they have an episode of Stargate for you. And I said, what? There's, they told me that. So I said, okay. So before I said no, because I was committed now to this Cyrano, and people, you sort of have to honor your word. I called Brad, and said, "Hey, is there any chance?" And luckily, as you say, the production was such. And when I told him what it was, too, every character guy's got a Cyrano in him. It's not the young, handsome, the Brad Pitts who walk around. I mean, Cyrano is the character man's Hamlet. It's the character man's adventure. And so he said, "Oh, let me get back to you." And sure enough, they changed everything and worked it around. So I did both. So I flew up. I did. I think I did 3 days, and then flew back and finished the week of the Cyrano, and then flew up. Yeah. The other thing I'll never forget, I had to be up really early on Monday morning. And of course we performed Sunday night, and the only flight I could get in was into Seattle. And how do I get from Seattle? And so they sent a driver, because they knew I had to get up at 5, and they sent a driver. No, I have nothing but admiration and appreciation for Brad. And, Brad was very, very kind to me. He also said something to me that was, really sort of touched me. In Threshold, the episode Threshold, which he wrote, uh, I I did it, and it was our backstory. It's a very important story for Chris and myself. It's
Yeah.
sort of my favorite episode because of that reason, our connection. And then I was up doing another episode later on in that season, and now they had edited and we're just doing the final thing. And he came up to me, he says, "I want you to know, I did not cut a single thing of yours in Threshold." And
In
you
editing.
know, in editing, he said, "I kept every single moment." And I thought, wow, thank you. And it was, it's sort of, you know, being hired is in essence saying job well done. So, actors, you can't expect in the craziness of our schedule and the craziness of people to be overly appreciative all the time.
Absolutely.
But the occasional word like that always, and it made me feel a part of the show, and made really a deep part of the show. And so it's very kind of it.
I'm trying to think, when was the last time that, you filmed as Braytech? I mean, 13, 14 years at this point, and we're still
Yeah,
talking, and there's
I
still things to
know.
talk about.
Absolutely.
Something worked.
Not only that, there's still some things to do.
Ain't that the truth? I completely agree. Christopher with the Jaffa story, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to take a step back. I want to go back a little bit and kind of get the foundation of you as a human being. Where were you raised? What did your family do?
I was raised in New Haven, Connecticut. Very blue collar. Uh, both my both my mom and dad worked. My mom worked in a sewing factory, like essentially a sweatshop, really. And my dad was a construction worker, but pre-union. Unions. This would have been, in the 50s, and then was lucky enough to get a job in the post office late. He was probably in his 40s when he got that, and that sort of changed everything. And I had two older brothers, and it was, we all worked. We all had after school jobs, and this is sort of a template for a time past. This would not work today, but it's what it was. We all worked, and me and my brothers, and we contributed that money to the household. That wasn't like, oh, well, we're working so you can teach, so we can be taught responsibility. No,
the family pulled together.
Yeah. And oddly, I didn't realize until much later, because when I say I was working, I'm telling you, I was selling newspapers at 7 and 8. Again, a different time. That was daycare. Because my brothers had roots too, so they can keep an eye on me. And because my dad worked nights and my mom worked during the day, there was no one at home to keep an eye on us. So we did that, and that's sort of what it was. I almost some of the big things. I almost went to a tech school, high school, but then I decided I didn't. And very late in my high school, I thought, there's any of a number of trades that I could go into. And it was only late that I had a teacher who said, maybe you should just do a year or two of college just for yourself. I think, it was a teacher who, I had tons of teachers who were very nice. I was a cut up. I was not a good student. I was not a bad student. I just, in high school, I was working 4 to 12. You know what I mean? There was, so she convinced me that she insisted on having my opinion on things. And boy, did she regret that, because then I never shut up. No. And because of that, I went to college. And it was in college that I literally, it's the old, stumbled into an audition for a play. And that's where it sort of began. But initially it was social. It was a place to be. You're 19, 18, 20, what do you do with yourself? What do you do with your passions?
Right.
Once you get past the mask of what you're presenting to society. And because of that, it was social. It was, meeting people, meeting women, but I was lucky because of growing up in New Haven. There were two of the most respected regional theaters here in New Haven. And they were literally less than a 15-minute walk from where I grew up. And I would walk there. So when I was in college on a Saturday night, I'd go and put down my student ID and pay $10 for whatever they were showing. And it took me to a different world. That world was sometimes Irish, sometimes it was American, sometimes it was a Russian, but I got to see exquisite actors. For instance, I saw Meryl Streep, Sigourney Weaver when they were students. They were students. That's who that's John Cazale, John Lithgow, Al Pacino. This is who was performing there. And so consequently, Christopher Walken, I saw him do a number of things before he was Christopher Walken. And so I feel blessed for that, because I didn't have to get rid of tons of bad habits that can sometimes happen when you start too early. It was always, my exposure was always, oddly, really some of the top talent in the country. And so, wow. And only after that I realized, I need to train more. And so I ended up going to school in Philadelphia. That's where I got my training. And now what do? I taught. When I came out of school, I was going to move to New York, but I have no money. So I taught briefly, academically, acting, directing, those types of things. And I was offered a full-time job to go into academia. But I did not feel, I didn't feel it was good for the students. For me, I didn't have any professional experience. How can I go from being a student 1 year to being an instructor? I wasn't tried and tested what I knew. And so I said no, and I was lucky. And because of that, I moved to New York, and then I started working. I got hired out of town, got hired in Oregon, for people that know the Shakespeare Festival there, where I spent a couple of seasons and directed, and then did my stint of theater for the first 14 or so years.
Wow.
That was a long answer, David. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. What was do you recall the play in high school that first got you
No,
hooked?
it was in college.
Oh, in college. Excuse me.
Yeah, it was not in high school.
It was
That's
not
what
in
I'm
high
saying.
school.
No, in high school I was working full time. I played
Okay.
basketball for a while. I did play
Oh,
basketball, and
okay.
that was oddly, I think that was my movement. That's
Okay.
where I learned how to move. When you think about basketball, it's a very sort of jazz like, dance like, modern dancey sort of thing, and so that served me very well as an actor. It was the first play I ever stepped foot on stage was The Tempest, Shakespeare's The
Okay.
Tempest. And you want to know my first line I ever said on stage?
Please.
All is lost to prayers, all is lost. Now, I think of that line all the time.
I bet you know the DNA of what that line means too. So,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Did you
Yeah.
ever get a chance to tell this individual in your high school, "Thank you. You
My
changed.
college.
Oh, so it was a college advisor that suggested the.
I'm sorry. You're talking about, yeah. No, it was an English teacher.
Did you ever get a chance to say thank you?
I never did because guess what? She eloped with another English teacher. Two of them left
You're kidding.
their spouses. No, I kid you not. There was a big scandal. They left their spouses, and so I don't know where she ended. But one time I Googled her, but I could not find her because I was having one of those nostalgic moments. So, but
Right.
she
Absolutely.
may have changed her name.
Yeah, those kinds of things happen all the time. Thank you for watching this clip from Dial the Gate. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving us a thumbs up with that like button. It will encourage the algorithm to show this to other Stargate fans. Also, please consider sending this to a fellow Stargate friend. I also want to invite you to subscribe to future episodes right here on YouTube. We are a live show, so changes are likely to happen all the time. And if you plan on joining us live, you'll want to be the first to know. Be sure to visit dialthegate.com for the complete guest schedule so you'll know when to join us and ask your very own questions to our guests. See you on the other side.